Chapter 9. Did Jesus think he was God? We come now to the question at the heart of this book. Did Jesus of Nazareth claim to be God? Again, doesn't really matter what somebody claims, and the word God kind of just means everything, so that's not even a big deal. The answer to this question has enormous historical and theological implications. If Jesus did not think he was God, then it is reasonable to conclude that he wasn't. What? No, you could be confused about whether you're God or not. Like, most people don't realize they're God, even though they are. And if Jesus wasn't God, then one of the central claims of Christianity, indeed, arguably the central claim, that the one true God became man in Jesus of Nazareth, comes crashing to the ground. Now that part probably is true, but even if he does claim to be God, that still comes crashing to the ground. But if Jesus did speak and act as if he were the one God, then we are forced to make a decision. Either he was a liar who knew he was just a man but spoke as if he were divine, or he was a lunatic who thought he was God but was grossly mistaken, or he was who he claimed to be, the one true God come in person. What does the historical evidence suggest? It's so stupid that it's reduced down to like 3 possibilities. Again, based on 4 books, 2 of which weren't even written by eyewitnesses. None of them were written in Jesus' lifetime. And they all had serious motivation to lie, because their power rested on it. These riddles were designed... Okay. As we will see, the evidence in the Gospel suggests that Jesus did in fact claim to be God. He did so, however, in a very Jewish way. That is, Jesus used riddles and questions that were intended to both reveal and conceal his identity at the same time. Again, if the shit is true, then God's putting hurdles in our path to salvation, which makes him like the devil. These riddles were designed to force his audience to ask the question, who is this man? Jesus also performed signs and wonders, or at least some assholes later wrote down that he did, that were intended to reveal his identity. As with his parables, however, the full meaning of these actions can only be fully understood in the context of ancient Jewish scripture and tradition. I cannot stress this point enough. Just because Jesus did not go around Galilee shouting, "I am God," does not mean that he didn't claim to be divine. Okay? And again, it's not who cares if he did or didn't. As I hope to show, one of the primary reasons some scholars argue that Jesus did not think he was God is because they do not interpret his teachings and actions in their first century Jewish context. Oh, so it's up for interpretation and people might disagree about what Jesus said because we don't know what he actually said? Shocker. In other words, they fail to take seriously the Jewish roots of Jesus' divine identity. Alright. In order to see all of this clearly, we need to look briefly at why some people doubt that Jesus thought he was God. Let's begin with the claim that the Synoptic Gospels, our earliest biographies of Jesus, do not depict him as divine. Is Jesus divine in the Synoptic Gospels? Perhaps the most widespread and persuasive argument against the idea that Jesus thought he was God is the claim that 3 out of the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, do not depict Jesus as God. According to this argument, although Jesus speaks and acts as if he were God in the Gospel of John, the same thing is not true for the Jesus of the Synoptic Gospels. While the Synoptic Gospels describe Jesus as a wonder worker, a great rabbi, a true prophet, and even the Messiah. Oh my gosh, these stupid words. They do not portray him as the one God come in the flesh. Consider, for example, the recent words of Airman. If Jesus went around Galilee proclaiming himself to be a divine being sent from God, could anything else that he might say be so breathtaking and thunderously important? Yeah, pretty much everything, because the word God is not that significant. If you go with me, everything's God. Look, okay, this is divine. Cool, you know, oh my God, it's a hairbrush. I didn't make it. It's spectacular. It's really helpful for Christina. That's God right there. And yet, none of these earlier sources says any such thing about him. Did they just decide not to mention the one thing that was most significant? Again, not significant. Almost certainly the divine self claims in John are not historical. Well, yeah, because none of the claims are historical, because Jesus didn't write. Elsewhere, Ehrman admits that the Synoptic Gospels do not depict Jesus as an ordinary man. However, he also insists that Jesus in the Synoptic Gospels is not a pre-existent being and is in no way equal to the God of Israel, the creator of the universe. Instead, Ehrman suggests that the idea of Jesus' divinity is something that only came into existence in the wake of Jesus' resurrection, after which his followers began ascribing honors to him that he never claimed for himself. Now, if it were true that Jesus never speaks or acts as if he is divine in the Synoptic Gospels, that 3 of the earliest biographies of Jesus do not provide any evidence that he claimed to be divine, then a major historical argument could be made against the ancient Christian belief that Jesus thought he was God, and this would be quite understandably lead to doubts about whether the Gospel of John is historically accurate in portraying Jesus as claiming to be God. Oh my God, nitpicking over word choice when he already admitted it's the telephone game, it's been translated, it's passed down at least 30 years. Who cares? The problem is that the claim that Jesus is not depicted as God in the Synoptic Gospels is flat out wrong. The only way to hold such a claim is to completely ignore both the miracles of Jesus in which he acts as if he is the one God, as well as the sayings of Jesus in which he speaks as if he is the one God. Again, you already admitted we don't know what Jesus said. Miracles. I would call them magic tricks. What's the difference? Let's end it there.